College football realignment and expansion news continues this offseason as the Big 12 and Pac-12 have ended talks about a potential partnership. That news comes according to ESPN and CBS Sports. What does this news mean for college football, those two conferences, what also might be next? Let's break it down. I'm Stephen Lasson of All CFB 365. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. We are going to be staying on top of this story all off season long. Before we dive into what this news might mean for both of these conferences and what's coming for college football, let's recap the story from ESPN and CBS. According to those two sources, the Big 12 and Pac-12 recently discussed a partnership of some sorts. The Big 12 approached the Pac-12 about this. This could be a full merger, pooling of rights, or some sort of scheduling alliance were all discussed. According to those reports, a full merger had the most value to the conferences. However, ESPN and CBS both report that those discussions have ended. And again, if you're wondering why we're seeing these two conferences discuss potential ways to work together, it's a search for revenue. Both conferences have TV deals coming up in the near future, not to mention stability with USC and UCLA leaving to go to the Big 10. The Pac-12, the future of the conference is very unsettled. The Big 12 is in a position to potentially capitalize and add teams coming from a position of stability after what happened last year between Oklahoma and Texas. And we're also seeing every conference in college football trying to keep up with the SEC and the Big 10. The Power 2 in college football are breaking away. What can conferences do to increase revenue, increase stability? That's what this is all about right now. So what does this mean for the Big 12? The first thing that jumps out to us is the new commissioner, Brett Yormark, has been very active since taking over. Officially, he doesn't start until early August, but with everything going on in the world of college football, he's been very active. As we talked about just a few minutes ago, it's important for all conferences to explore options for revenue, media deals, TV, all that is driving these discussions. At Big 12 Media Days, Yormark indicated the conference was open for business, exploring options. This potential partnership with the Pac-12 was one of the things that the conference was looking as far as increasing value, increasing revenue. And as we look ahead, the media deals for this conference continue to loom large. What can the Big 12 do to increase value or revenue? One thing that we should keep in mind is the news of the Pac-12 and Big 12 not partnering does not mean that the Big 12 is done with expansion. They could go after Pac-12 teams. This was Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Oregon, and Washington have all been mentioned. After taking a look at the Big 12, let's take a look at the Pac-12 and what this news means for the conference. Sort of a similar story here. As we talked about with the Big 12, the conference, the Pac-12, is continuing to search for ways for revenue, to find more stability, especially now that USC and UCLA are going to the Big 10. The future of the conference is very unsettled. There's a lot of questions about membership. Can they keep the 10 teams together, or will they lose some members to the Big 12? Can they invite two teams to at least increase the revenue to a point to where they can get back to 12 teams? Right now, the Pac-12 is in a crucial spot because they opened up a 30-day window for negotiations with television partners. That early August timeline could be really crucial for the future of the Pac-12. So now that we know the Big 12 and Pac-12 are not going to have a partnership, the question becomes, what's next? And if you're the Pac-12, those media negotiations for television deals and revenue are crucial for the next 30 days. That early August timeline could be crucial to seeing when the Big 12 and Pac-12 might have some news about potential, expansion or realignment, potential movement from teams from one conference to another. The options for the Pac-12 are pretty clear at this point. They can choose to stay at 10. keep the membership together, stay at 10, operate as a 10-team conference, much like the Big 12 has done recently. They could add to the conference to replace USC and UCLA. There's no replacing the value that those two programs had in the Pac-12, but could they add a San Diego State? Could they add Boise State to at least give the conference a little bit more value and get back to 12 teams? There's also the wild card. We've mentioned it on this channel before. Where do television networks want these teams? If that's the case, could the Pac-12 and one of the television partners put together a very enticing deal for some of those Big 12 teams to come over to the conference? Outside of just staying at 10 or expanding, the Pac-12 could also pursue a partnership with the ACC. This has been rumored by Sports Illustrated as something potentially in the works as well, but as we saw, the Pac-12 and Big 12 not able to work together. Could the Pac-12 piece together something with the ACC? We know the ACC is looking for revenue to try and keep up with the Big 10 and SEC. Is there a way that these two conferences combined with a television network partner could make something happen? That's something to watch as well. When it comes to the Big 12, there's two things that are clear about its next options. The first is it could opt to not expand at this time and just stay as a 12-team conference once Oklahoma and Texas leave for the SEC. The other is it could strike a blow to the Pac-12 and add some of those teams that we mentioned: Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Oregon, and Washington. So the Big 12 could either stay at 12, it could become the Big 16, or the Big 18 if it decides to add teams from the Pac-12. So the bottom line is this: at this time, the Big 12 and Pac-12 are not going to work on a partnership. Who knows what's going to happen with the Big 12 and Pac-12? Will there be expansion? Will these two leagues just continue to operate independently? Maybe with the Pac-12 adding a few teams from the Mountain West. Those things are all unsettled. We said it a little bit ago. Keep in mind that early August window, once the Pac-12 ends negotiations with television partners, there could be some sort of resolution on the revenue for the conference that either keeps it together or creates the opportunity for the teams to jump to the Big 12. Whichever conference can make the better argument in terms of financials and stability will be important. That's again playing into the TV negotiations. We also mentioned it. Where do the TV networks want these teams? Do they prefer the Big 12 or the Pac-12? Those will continue to play out in negotiations over the next couple weeks. And also impacting this discussion is the other dominoes potentially in realignment. Could Notre Dame suddenly decide to join the Big 10? What happens with the ACC? All of these things could impact what happens in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. The one constant right now in college football is change and chaos, but we are staying on top of this story. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, All CFB 365. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram there. We are going to stay on top of this story all offseason, and we'll also have plenty of preseason coverage getting you ready for the 2022 college football season.